once again, I would like to thank Veer for giving me this opportunity to interact with these brilliant minds here, and also thankful to the audience here for being here. When we talk about the brand, traditionally we talk about brand as a name, a symbol, a color code, or a combination of all these, but not anymore. There's earlier we used to differentiate between one seller and the other. But when it comes to an eternal brand, it is more lasting. And when we are talking about some of the eternal brands, the top of recall is, of course, as mentioned, Amul, Fruity, Bank of India, Happy, Tata, Indigo Paints. And in order to build these brands, you have to be very creative. That's one thing. You have to have a very inquisitive mind about the consumers, what do they want, and what they will continue to want over a period of time in order to build the eternal brands. So, to understand how these brands were built, because three of them were multiple brands, what is the thought process that goes into building eternal brands is what we are looking forward to. So, we have with us, of course, Bharat. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Kiran, many thanks. And Tarun, thank you very much for joining. Personally, I'm honored, as I said, to interact with you. We shall start alphabetically. So I'll start with Bharat. You have built multiple eternal brands like Bank of India, Fruity, Bailey, Happy, Videocon, and have won many awards also for these advertisements. How would you like to put an eternal brand and Amul included? Because Amul is the one that's making a lot of.
I think, I don't know if Kiran would agree with me, that I think for building an eternal brand, more than a creative mind, you need a good client. I think good clients build eternal brands. Because you can find creative people spending a dozen. But to find a good client who would build that brand, because brands get built and they go off. A lot of brands which were great brands don't last very long because there's so much interference that they disappear over time. In fact, on my email, if I send you, there is a permanent line which says, Camel is a horse designed by a committee. And I think most brands, when they are being built, there's a committee that decides how those brands are to be built. And I think that destroys a good brand. So I think good clients, when you say Amul, I think 99% of the credit for what Amul is, was and will be, does not go to people like us who handled that for some years. It goes to a man called Dr. Kurian, who put faith in us and said, I don't understand advertising, I understand milk and milk products. Do what you want to do, make sure that my brand will sell. I think a client like that is somebody who builds great brands. And I think whichever brand that we build, whether it is Tata Tea on the brand of Tata Tea or Tata Salt or Amul, Amul Butter, Amul Milk, whatever it is, I think the credit for that goes to a client like Dr. Kurian. And I think we were lucky that we had some clients like that over the years.
I just need to tell you about Amul. Amul is the only client on earth that does not approve the creative work before it is published. It goes directly from agency onto the media.
Oh, yeah. You know, the client, for instance, if we were sitting there and there was a match going on, and if Virat Kohli or somebody sold a century, I would think of a line and they would call up my office and say, do a drawing like this, get a holding, I should put a scaffolding and whitewash the holding. I try and come to the office in the evening if I was in Mumbai. And we paint it overnight. And next morning, before you read that Kohli had sold a century in the newspapers, they would play a joke on that on Amul logo. And people always wondered how that happened. And that happened because there was no client to go. I've handled other brands. I've handled Air India, where we did something as good. Next morning, we had to go to Air India to get their approval. Then somebody would say, "This color अच्छा है, पीछे alternative दिखा है, पीछे सफेद क्यों रखा है? Yellow दिखाओ." Then you do yellow. Then you go day after tomorrow with the yellow. Then somebody else would say, "That hose that you've given of Maharaja, उसको cricket का कपड़ा मत पहना." So by the time the Virat Kohli holding would go up, it would be Thursday. But this time it made no sense. It made sense tomorrow morning because it's a fresh news. It was topical. By Thursday, lots of other things happen. So that's why I said the credit goes, as you said. A client who said, I have full faith in you, don't show me what to do. And that's helpful.
Yes, because many times it does happen, they even do not approve the production cost also. They say that we will not pay even for the production cost. I know
No, they say they'll pay, they don't pay, but they say we will pay.
Eventually they'll pay the
No, but let me give you one more example of how, to what an extent a client can go to. We launched with Amul milk, which was a tetrapack triangular pack. We call it the pyramid pack. And Dr. Kurian genuinely hated that design. Every time you would go and put that pack in front of him, he would say, "This is the worst design I've ever seen." And he would say, "No, sir, we've done market research. All the women have loved it." He said, "Even I have done market research. I've asked my wife, Mr. J.J. Bakshi, who was the managing director, asked his wife. All of us hate it." But you are the custodian of this brand. I'm giving you my personal opinion. If you think this is the way to go, I will not ask you to change it. He kept paying for that brand without asking us to change it. He would give us some Nasi, he would give us some Malayali saying. He said, in Malayalam we have a saying which means that the crow finds his children white and beautiful. So he said, this is your creation, you naturally feel it's very good. I think it's the worst design I've ever seen, but don't change it. Now, a client like that who says, "I genuinely do not like what you've done, but because I put you in charge of this, I go with your views over my views." That's what we need to do.
That's amazing. I mean, that's a new insight that clients make so much of contribution to developing an internal brand. Kiran, you have also built multiple brands, but particularly the one that strikes immediately is the Indigo Paints, for instance. So, what has been the brief and how did you build that brand?
With your permission, can I go back to
Yes.
the screen?
Yeah.
Can all of you see the screen?
Yes.
I'm referring now to Eternal Brand, so I'm
Yes.
just going to show you this. Anybody wants to know, wants to say, what is it special about this brand? It's called Eternal Brand, and below that it says, custodianship unbroken since 734 AD. Any guesses? Why this brand is out there? This brand is the world's oldest brand. It's 1,400 years old. Right? And we are Nagpur designed it. Anybody wants to take a why this is there? This is the world's oldest beer brand. It's 1,000 years old. This is a club. You can belong to the club if your business is more than 200 years old and the founder's family is still involved. So these are all examples of eternal brands. Just two more examples. 40% of all businesses that are more than 200 years old are in Japan. Want to shoot a picture? Yeah. Finally, why is this brand there? This is India's oldest brand in terms of as a business, right? Now, if you look at all of those brands, which a beer brand that has lasted 1,000 years, companies that have lasted 300 years, Eternal Brand which has lasted 1,400 years, there will be 2 or 3 things that will come across as common. One is there is a very simple definition that they all have. So, Eternal Brand has a one-word definition. It's custodianship. That the king is the custodian of Jaipur or of Mehar. The real ruler is Lord Shiva. So I will not take any money from my subjects. I am not ruling them. If there is a procession, I am not going to be at the head of the procession. So for 76 generations, they have lived up to that. So part 1, the idea is very clear, and part 2, you have to live up to it. If you take Van Steffener, it was born 1,000 years ago and it's still going strong. So if you look at it, human beings have an expiry date, brands don't. Technically, brands can last forever. So long as they have one idea and they live up to that idea. So that's what I wanted to start with, because these are extremely rare examples, you won't find them elsewhere. Thank you. Yeah.
Right. So, Tarun, how can one develop this investigative mindset? Because you must know what the customer's perspective towards brand is, what is how it's going to be. So, how to develop this kind of inquisitive mindset?
So honestly, I speak with some hesitancy sitting in front of these two gentlemen, but let me give it my two basic case. I actually quite like the Korean sir approach, which is that your intuition and your instinct is telling you something which may or may not be correct in all fairness. I found, at least in my corporate career, that reports would tell you whatever you wanted them to tell you, depending on how you design the question and sort of what audiences you went to and try to get your answers. I know there's a far more scientific approach behind it. You're obviously getting a more honest answer that's resonating with crowds. But to me, unless the business owner believes in what's happening, like so I was saying, there's no question of building an internal brand. If you're in disagreement with your own marketing and advertising agencies, it's dead in the water on day one. So I think that's part of it. Building that inquisitive mindset, I can speak for Reliance, for example, right? The question will always be asked as to what we are doing in terms of our performance on identified metrics year on year, quarter on quarter, month on month, on whatever activity we are engaged in. So there is hard data built into it, but on top of that, there's intuition from the promoter family as well. Hopefully that answers some of that question.
Okay, yeah. Bharat, you and Kiran, both of you have worked very extensively on Tata. Now, multiple brands of Tatas, and it's a big conglomerate, like salt to software. That's how one has to put Tata's as. And with these multiple brands, you have to still retain the value of a Tata corporate brand.
Yes.
So, what were the challenges that you faced? Bharat, we can start with you and come to you.
I think in fact we faced less challenges working with Tatas because as we worked on multiple brands, we realized that the name Tata carries a lot of guarantee in itself.
Yes.
So you don't have to explain what Tata stands for. When you say a Tata product, people have faith that it will be a good product, that they won't try and shortchange you. So whether we advertise for teas or cement or detergent or salt or for Tetley which they bought later on, everything had to have, the moment you said a Tata product, not many companies can do that. Not many companies have that kind of goodwill with the consumers, but Tata's had that. And in every brand that we worked on, we realized that that's something that Tata's have built over the years. And they've lived up to that. So I think it was easier managing the thing with Tata's. What do you think?
Yeah. So you have to think of Tata's as a corporate name and what it contributes to the product brands individually. So the highest contribution is to Tata Steel.
Yes.
I actually have seen a chart which shows all this. And the lowest contribution is to anything to do with design. Because the name Tata signifies size, signifies core businesses, but design you do not associate with it. Therefore, when they launched watches, they didn't call them Tata watches, they called them Titan watches. Therefore, when they launched jewelry, they called it Tanish and not Tata. But when you go to the Tanish showroom, outside it says a Tata product. Because when you go inside, you want to trust that that gold that you are buying is pure. That trust comes from Tata. So Tata went out and bought a steel plant called Chorus.
Yes, of course.
Chorus told them that we have made multiple promises to our community here in India. And the only brand, we have many suitors, there are many people who have come to buy us, but the only brand we trust to live up to those promises, because those promises are not written promises, they are verbal promises. So the only brand that will live up to those verbal promises is Tata's. We are not allowing you to buy us on the basis of the Tata Steel balance sheet. We are allowing you to buy us because you are Tata. So for Bharat and my level, actually, there is nothing much to do because that overall thing of monstrous level of trust is always there. What did happen? We did a long, huge project for them on Tata trucks. So that is a given that the person who buys a Tata truck trusts it. Now they are up against a Mercedes Benz, they are up against the Koreans, they are up against the Chinese, they are up against Japanese, the Swedish. So they needed to present market. But that fundamental contribution of Tata, the corporate brand, to the product brands is unshakable.
Right. So I must tell you about how a company's trust in a company's name carries a lot of weight. There's a joke about this. That this man went and bought a Rolls Royce, a brand new Rolls Royce from a showroom and drove off. And after 100 kilometers, the Rolls Royce had stopped on the road. And he said, brand new Rolls Royce, and he opened the bonnet and found that there was no engine in it. And there was a helicopter coming from the back, and they said, sir, just give us half an hour, we'll get the engine, we'll fix it, and we'll be on your way. And they did that. After that, they fixed the engine, and he was on the way. And he said, and that's all fine, but tell you something, if it didn't have an engine, how the hell did the car run for 100 kilometers? So he said, sir, you must remember, for the first 100 kilometers, the Rolls Royce runs on its reputation. It's after the 100 kilometers it needs an engine. So I think Tata is something like that.
Yes, absolutely. Let things apart, but then that is what the brand building really goes about. And that's what creates the eternal brand also. Many times, people ask me, what is the product or what can be marketed? And my answer to most of these people is that anything and everything under the sun, including sun, is a product. And it depends on your ingenuity and your creativity, how you market that. But also you have many successful political campaigns also, because even the political parties also need to market themselves. It's not just that whatever their manifesto is, they will get elected on that. They need to promote themselves, they need to promote their candidates, build that kind of attraction to it. So, if you can throw some light on these political campaigns.
But I think political campaigns are something that has now happened with television coming in a big way. This 24-hour news channels. Earlier when there was just press, I think the political campaigns were very simple. I remember in the olden days I heard that if there was a Congress campaign, it was one for the urban India and one for the rural India. There were just two campaigns that they made. And politicians had a safe fare because they could say anything that they wanted. And if it was printed wrong, they would say, I never said this. It was printed wrong. Now when you have 15 television cameras stuck in their face, they can't afford to sort of lie about this. And in fact, a lot of them get into trouble because of that. I have not done too many campaigns. I had just written, in 2014, I had written Modi's line, Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, which we didn't know was, actually at that time we didn't know that Modi was going to be the choice. So we had done Ab ki baar Modi Sarkar, Ab ki baar Jagdi Sarkar, Ab ki baar Sushma Sarkar, Jab Congress aayi hai, Kamal Tod Mehengai, all kinds of things like that. And then they finally said that we are going with Mr. Modi. Then 2000, but this is exactly where we come back to the client.
Yes.
So here, I was in the agency, I had just written the line and it was sent to the committee. In 2015, the Congress called me. They had 5-6 big agencies, Thompson's and those very big names. And they just called me as an advisor. And Mr. Prithviraj Chavan is a wonderful guy, very highly educated, very nice. He was the chief minister. And every evening he used to go to his bungalow, Varsha, and sit there from 7 to 10. And everybody in Congress had a different point of view. Nobody could agree to anything. And finally he even said that, why don't you think of a nice line for us, a bass line? So I said, what do you want to say? They said, we want to say that you worked and done very good work till now. And if you elect us now, we'll do even better. So I often gave them a line which says, Pragati Jani Bari, Hata Unse Parare. Which I think Prithviraj Chavan said to Jambi, he said, tomorrow we have a cabinet meeting. You come first to present to the NCP guys who are our partners, and then you present to our guys. So this is where the client's confidence in you comes in. So I went in and presented to the NCP guys who were very disciplined. They were a very disciplined lot. The only person who spoke was Ajit Dada Pawar. And he said, "Tu bhi karta hai, na main sanli se." Chara, kai I want to chara. So when I was leaving, I forget who. Somebody tried to say something. And just somebody got over saying, "You want to sanli line? Kya pata kya bola hai?" No, that was a good client.
Yes.
He said, "I like this. Let's go with this." When I went to the Congress side, everybody had a different point of view. Mr. Paturkar Kadam, who was late Mr. Paturkar Kadam, he said, line to him, Pragati Jani Bari, आमच्या विलासरावच्या मुलांनी एक सिनेमा केला होता लय भारी म्हणून त्याची आठवण काही नाही म्हटलं भारी इज अ मराठी वर्ड. Then somebody else stood up and said, you must understand, Mr. Dabholkar, की गावातल्या लोकांना जोडाक्षर वाचता येत नाही. त्यांचे जे म्हणजे काँग्रेसमध्ये पण जोडाक्षर आहे, पृथ्वीराज चव्हाणांच्या नावात पण जोडाक्षर आहे. You never get elected. But the point is that line did not go through. Because there was no client who said, I have faith in this, let's go with this. That is what is whether it's political campaign or a brand campaign or an institutional campaign. You need somebody who takes, so you can't run a company or a political party by consensus. There has to be leadership, somebody who says, I like this, I'll take the chance. And there's a great chance, 50% chance that you could be wrong. Nobody can guarantee that what I've done is definitely going to work. Any industry, advertising, entertainment, nobody has a formula that says there's 100% guarantee that it will work. Somebody has to take that chance, and I think people who've taken those chances have built eternal brands.
Yeah, that's what the distinction between the political parties and the commodity that comes into the picture. Kiran, brand communication has been changed more, and it's becoming more and more complex. And you have the Chlorophyll 3.0, which is the organization shift from the brand creation to brand creation and brand extension. Can you throw some light on that? Because Chlorophyll 3.0 is a new concept.
Rather than think about Chlorophyll 3.0, let's think about branding.
Yes.
So, take social media was invented. Let's say 2007. 2007 is when Facebook came. I'm not very sure. So, till social media was invented, the method of creating a brand was very simple. A brand spoke and consumer received. Right? So, it was in the middle was an ad agency or a brand consultancy. Yes. So there are three entities. There is brand and facilitators like media and advertising agency, and then the consumer. Through this, they are speaking and these people are listening. And very simple. Then came social media. Now suddenly what is happening is that the consumer is not listening to the brand at all. The consumer is listening to the online community. How many of you buy things from Amazon? What is it that you do when you want to buy a phone? First thing you do is review. Why? Because at the back of your mind, there is this sense that the person who has bought it and used it is telling the truth, not the phone maker. The phone maker can say whatever he wants. But this person is bought it. He's like me. She's like me. And so she will be telling the truth. So suddenly, instead of all of this, you have this little gola in the middle, which is now the second year. Then came COVID. And in COVID, everybody sat at home. You got bored, you didn't know what to do. But there are other things that suddenly you realize were very, very critical. Safety and hygiene is critical. The earth being sustainable is critical. So now if you look at every single big brand on earth, what it is doing is saying, yes, I will make products, but foremost I will make them for the future of the earth, for the future of children. So that is across everything. Any Indian brand today which tries to have a joint venture with a global brand, first they have to answer simple questions like, are your workers looked after? Is there air conditioning in your factory? Do the workers get to eat properly? Do you have diversity in your workforce? Is there equality in your workforce? Is there integration? Without all of these things which are now part of sustainability, part of what is called as the ESG network, no brand can survive. So that is like the third era of branding, and therefore when we are trying to build these brands, that's what is part of this. How do we have sustainable practice? Now, the other big thing that has happened is it has shifted from communication to behavior. So earlier you said to build a brand, you created campaigns, put it on television, put it on. That's not working because nobody is listening. You are listening to what the others are saying about you. Therefore, what you do becomes more critical than what you say. Have you heard of a famous company called Hindustan Lever? For 14 years they denied that they had done anything wrong in Kodaikanal. 14 years. The charge was that they had put mercury into the water and therefore many thousand people had been affected. Some had lost limbs, etc. 14 years ago. Then came an organization called Chatka.org. They called one young girl, 16-year-old girl, Sophia. She wrote a rap song on Kodaikanal being denied its rights by user. That rap song became so famous that Hollywood people started tweeting about it. 14 years later, Hindustan Legal had to go back and say, "We are very sorry, we made a mistake. Here is the compensation." Who made this happen? Neither the brand nor the receiver. It's an influencer who's in the middle. Just one young 16-year-old girl who's singing. So what you do as in branding is in brand is far more critical than what you see. Because nobody is listening.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great insight. Because here what we used to talk about is just a triangular. That you have got the external marketing between company and the consumer, you got the internal marketing between the consumer and the employees, and you have interactive marketing between the employees and the customer. But now it's with technology coming in, it has become a pyramid. So it's a pyramid which connects all of them together.
Yes.
So whether you like it or you do not like it, you have access to the issues while building your brand. So that's great insight. Thank you very much for that. Tarun, we have seen the brand communication also is undergoing a lot of change. The way they were communicated earlier and now they are communicated. There is a lot of thrill going on in that also. So how do you think about this thrill in brand communication?
So I think broader than thrill, it is a question of connecting emotionally with the audience that is trying to connect with you. For me, maybe I'm too old, not old enough, I'm not sure, but there was this beautiful Cadbury there a long time ago where the lady ran onto the pitch and was dancing to celebrate a victory. And I think that ad has now just been reversed, where the gentleman is dancing on the pitch as well. So it's a question of evolution, sort of reading the mood of the nation, of the audience that you're speaking to, and then crafting a communication to appeal to that mood. So for a Cadbury, it's a 180-degree switch in the communication, but it seems to work then and it seems to work today. So for me, start finding that right emotion which can actually attract your audience to you. Sort of taking up what Kiran sir is saying, you're not going to be lecturing them anymore, but that action says something about what the brand is believing in.
Right. So the thrill is turning 180 degrees now. What it was being done earlier and now it is being done.
It is. So thrill, I'm going to explain the usage of that word, just say emotion again. It is building. It doesn't have to be just something that is exhilarating or thrilling, right? Tears or happiness or anger or all of those emotions work. The Tata example is fantastic, right? You say Tata, the first thing that comes into your mind is trust. So whatever that emotion is that draws you as a seller to your product and your values works. And I think that's really their challenge, to find what it is that does connect with an audience that they're trying to speak to.
Right. Both of you have worked with like Nancy and you have also had influence by Alex. He always talked about inherent drama. But even when he did that advertisement of Lalita ji, famously he said that it was his mother who said Sasti cheese or Achi cheese mein farak hota hai. And from there he picked up that. So how you come from the stage, you're an actor as well. So how can we capture or how should a brand manager capture inherent drama in the life and get it into a brand?
Actually, Kiran has worked with Alec. I've never worked with Alec. I've not worked in an advertising agency and I couldn't work in his place because my English wasn't very good.
Yeah, you're best known for English.
So
that's the language that is spoken.
in Alec's place, you have to have correct English, otherwise they wouldn't take you. But I think what works here, since we're talking about this, the mistake that people like Alec Badam said, everybody, not in advertising, but since you mentioned Ted, they made is, they did what we call Xerox copies of foreign plays. They made the plays exactly as it was done on a Broadway show. So they had these Parsi and Punjabi actors who, for the first 5 minutes, spoke in good English accent and then reverted back to Parsi or Punjabi accents. So the problem with that kind of theatre was Maharashtrians had Marathi theatre, which was very vibrant. So they saw Marathi plays. Gujaratis had a bigger, vibrant Gujarati theatre. They saw Gujarati plays. Hindi people saw Hindi. So unless somebody was very keen on seeing a foreign copy of an English play, nobody went for an English play. So they didn't do more than 25-30 shows. Folded up after that. Plus, because English plays had to have actors who had good English accent, they didn't get good actors. They got good accented people. So we had Kabir Bedi, he was gorgeous looking, spoke well, but he wasn't a great actor. The moment we started getting regional actors in English theatre, Marathi theatre, Gujarati theatre, that changed the whole scenario. It wasn't the kind of plays that we did. It was what we call in advertising empathy. That audiences started understanding that these guys are talking the same way we talk. They're making the same mistakes. Their pronunciations are as bad as ours. And that made them feel more comfortable. So I think what these guys did wrong in English theatre was they stuck to that English place. They did not change with the times. They could see that things were changing. There was a larger audience which would still come and see English plays, provided they made English plays that were understood by everybody, which came from Indian scenarios, which didn't come from an international thing, which wasn't an English family talking about it. I did Purush, yes, big Marathi play in English. I did Tuzan Pashi, which was one of the longest running plays, Fuller Deshpande's plays in English. So those were situations which were Indian situations. The people that you saw on stage were Indian people. They were wearing dhota, they were wearing all kinds of Indian clothes. They were spouting shairis, they were talking Bhagavad Gita shlokas. And I think that related to the people more, they resonated much more with the audiences, which is what these guys who were great advertising guys, they did not do. And they should hate me for saying it, but I still say it.
That's very well so. I think at that time you were working with us around 83 years of copywriter.
Yes.
So how did this campaign go? Because that's one of the eternal brands that we talk about. And the landmark advertisement.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you look at an inflection point, is taken off from what Bharat is saying. 1982 Asia is the inflection point for Indian actor. Because television has no language. You don't need to have Oxonian English. You need to have a story. That is how Piyush Pandey.
Yes.
Chal Meri Luna. Because now you are talking about ads which have that full Indian flavor. Because now started talking to non-English audiences. So today, for instance, 95% of all videos on YouTube are non-English. So the tables have completely changed in 1980. What happened during the interview? Nirma happened. Nirma was 7 rupees a kilo, surf was 21 rupees a kilo, and it was taking the pants of surf in the market. We needed to have an argument for this young woman that actually buying surf is not such a story. So the first thing we did was, Nirma was not a blown powder, surf was a blown powder, which means in volume terms, half a kilo of surf was equal to 1 kilo of Nirma in volume terms. First we compared it in weight terms and that was a flop. Then we compared it in volume terms and then it was like artistic. Just the backstory is one of the greatest things about that woman, Kavita Chandra. We used to shoot each television commercial in 7 to 8 languages. And that lady was so talented, she didn't dub it. She actually took by heart all the 8 languages and did it in camera. So it's astonishing. But here's the twist in the story. So it ran for 5 years. Now in those 5 years, there were many new people who had entered the market, who hadn't seen old surf advertising. Right? And they saw was surf being compared to Nirma. And this extremely hard-nosed woman who said, hey, ye karo, chill. So this new generation that came in didn't like her. So we tried to soften her. We shot entire commercials with her backlit. Didn't work. We dropped the comparison with Nirma. It actually started working.
Oh,
So it's a fascinating story.
yes. That's
I wrote 21 commercials.
Right. Every advertisement, when we see the advertisement, there are multiple characters which come into that. And this character building also is very, very important thing. Sometimes the profile of the character is written in A4 size pages, type pages. Tarun, how these characters are really developed? How do you take it to account?
It seems to be the theme of my answer, but I'm going to circle back to it again, which is it's a character that you must resonate with, or the person that is speaking to that character is resonating with in some way or the other. Like Kiran sir is saying, you could hate the character, which might also work in some senses. If you love the character, perhaps that works even better. But therefore, it's a question of building a character that's genuine. It's not just an artificial, made up imagination of what it should be. The Amul word, for example, right? Everybody adores that character. It doesn't exist as a person, but it's a beautiful character that everybody adores irrespective of who they are. And I think that really lies at the core of, for me, for example, writing, which is building a character that is honestly represented in terms of their motivations, their desires, their personal circumstances in life. And I would suspect that's also true of what advertisers are doing when they are trying to communicate with all of us to consume their product.
Yes. Actually, branding is a very big topic, and when it comes to developing the brand's internal brand, it is still much more difficult. We are very, very short of time right now. But just one final question from my side. Osho Rajneesh was you know these couple of questions. Yeah. Osho Rajneesh was asked what is creativity. And he said that every religion in the world has said God is the creator of the world. But I do not know whether God created the world or not. But one thing I know that more creative you become, more godly you become. So God must be creator of the world. Now, looking at the eternal brands and the God status of that, three of you have achieved. Creativity in your words. That's final question from me, and then we will take questions from the audience. Creativity in advertising. Actually, Kiran first. Is it okay? Yeah, Kiran.
So there are two definitions of creativity. Remember first that the word creativity did not exist in 1927. In older cultures, there is no word creativity. China, Greece, India. It's only invented by a philosopher called Whitehead. So there are definitions of creativity. One is by a French philosopher and paleontologist called Tarun, who says to create is to unite. To create is to unite. To create something, you have to bring two things together.
Yeah.
There is another definition by, I forget the author's name, which says that creativity involves joining two frames of reference and creating a totally third new concept. So, my best example of this is that on a hot Sunday afternoon, I have come out of a railway station and there is somebody shouting saying, Lal Baraf Khan. What do you think he is selling? Lal Baraf Khan. What is he selling? He's selling Kaligar. He's selling watermelon. So he has taken the reference of cold from Baraf and he has taken Lal from Kaligar and he's joined it and he's saying Lal Baraf. All great creative work will have. There will be something inside your head which connects to something totally new and creates a third concept.
It's great. Yeah, Tarun.
I can't put it as eloquently as he has just done, but let me give this a shot, right? So for me, it's much simpler. It is just being able to communicate in a way which allows somebody else to see what you are thinking. Or maybe not necessarily what you're thinking, but what you want them to think. So just being able to convince them to think in a particular way is probably an expression of creativity as well.
You know, there's a beautiful sentence I read, to be very simplistic. All of you will always realized that the most creative human beings are the children. As you grow up, you stop being creative. So there's a beautiful sentence that the creative adult is a child who survived.
Yes.
If you can be a child at heart, you'll always be creative. I think when we start growing up, we start looking at people and say, maybe if I say this will be more creative. I must sort of do something to appeal to these kind of people. We start thinking logically. A child does not think logically. A child thinks, he says natural thinking. You just relate something else to something else and that becomes creative. So I think if we can remain childish in that sense, I think we can remain creative.
That's great. So it was very enlightening from few of them. In the event, if there is any question, we can take 2 questions. So very quickly, first come, first serve. This is okay. We have the question from the gentleman sitting in the third row from the back.
This question is to Mr. Kiran Khalap sir. This is on a lighter note. Like we are talking about branding. So for both of you, your bald, this thing, I mean, the pronunciation is correct. Is it a branding? Bald hair?
No, that I don't know about him. I listened to an ad, a shampoo ad which said hot clear.
I travel a lot, and this is the best way of telling the driver at the airport where I'm standing.
Okay, can we have a question on the CS note, please? Very quickly. Yeah, here in the first row. So we have it in the back room. We have it in the first row. Hi. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I'm Abhishek. And there's a question now. We have talked about a lot of influencers coming in.
Yes.
And how the stories that you have told that an influencer has changed the scenario. So, where do you see these new age influencers as a threat to you people who have been traditionally into the advertising, guiding the brands, and now these young age influencers coming in with a fan following and with the followers of millions following them, deciding the rule of the game? So are they a threat to you people?
What is the meaning of you people? If we do not follow what is happening in the lives of the consumers, obviously we will be negative. So, my biggest claim to fame is being in a video by an influencer called Beer Buses. So, I cannot deny that he is the largest influencer in India today. But will traditional advertising vanish? It might change in its media. So digital might become more, Insta might become more, might become more. But the idea that a marketing problem needs to be solved, that needs a particular level of strategy and thinking and consumer understanding. That is not necessarily their strength. Their strength is they have followers, they have taken a stand that this is what I will stand for, and then any product that matches that, they will talk about. They are not solving a marketing problem the way a traditional marketing systems.
My question to Bharat.
Okay, yeah. So
Like-
the final question.
Yeah. We had seen your play, we had organized in Nagpur, funny thing called Love. And today's your role is very different. So how, like from theatre, from those kind of comedy plays, you know?
Doing theatre is very simple. It's not very. I think amongst all the arts of communication, advertising is the toughest. Because advertising has limited time. You have to say whatever you want to say in 30 seconds or 1 minute or whatever time, 10 seconds. And in theatre, when I'm talking to an audience, I know who they are. People come to see my plays, I don't know how they think. Plus, if they don't like something for the next show, I can change that. So it's a live interaction between the audience and me. In advertising, we're talking to people we've never met. The ad that goes out to one small town in Bihar, to a small town in Kerala, to a small town in Maharashtra. and you don't know how the guys are going to be thinking, and you don't have money enough to make different ads for everybody. Then one ad should suffice. So to talk to people you don't know, and talk in a limited time, I think is the most difficult thing. Theatres and films are very simple. Film, if you take Shah Rukh Khan works, you don't have to have a story. Salman Khan works, you just take off his shirt and he goes. So everybody knows that. In fact, that's not a joke. Salman Khan knows exactly that his fan following wants to see him at some point taking his shirt off. Otherwise they won't buy that film. So he knows that. It's very simple. Advertising, we have no such formulas that we can follow. That's why advertising becomes the most difficult thing.
Many thanks, gentlemen. It was a big insight into how to develop the corporate brands. On personal note, it was a privilege interacting with you. I thank OCLF for giving this opportunity to interact with this brilliant mind.